Ricochet. It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala. Goal! Bafana! Bafana! Goal for South Africa! Goal for all Africa!
Frank de Boer speelt de bal. Heel goed naar Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp neemt de bal aan. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp.
جهانبخش ابن عالی پاس خوب سردار میچرخه پاس تو در محبی گلش کن گلش کن گلش کن گلش کن گل گل برای ایران
¡Golazo! Argentino, 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 genio, fenómeno, ídolo, maestro. ¡Qué golazo de Messi! Uno más.
Goal! 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 Total José! Goal of Aristeas! Goal of Aristeas! Treleni total.
Howard gratefully claims it. Distribution, brilliant. Landon Donovan, there are things on here for the USA. Can they do it here? Cross, and Dempsey's denied again, and Donovan has scored! Oh, can you believe this? Go, go, USA! Certainly through! Oh, it's incredible! You could not write a script like this!
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the March review show of The Window. It is the international podcast for all confederations. Everything you want to know, end to end. We are back with our March review show. And Joe, it was an incredible window. I can't wait to get into it. But we're going to talk about everything. This is truly end to end, every end of the world. We're going to talk about the 3 teams that qualified. 4 teams that qualified. I'm sorry. It was Iran. Japan qualified so early. It's like it it was separate from the others. I forgot that actually happened this window. So we'll talk about Japan, we'll talk about Iran, we'll talk about Argentina, and we will talk about the OFC and New Zealand punching their ticket to World Cup 26. And not only that, we'll get into New Caledonia, and they're still alive and very excited to talk about them. So with all the excitement from the World Cup qualifying, we're better placed to start than in CONCACAF where there was none. So we're gonna start with a little CONCACAF review because some different qualifying this window for CONCACAF. We now have our 16 participants for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup, which will take place this summer in June and July. But we only knew 9 of the teams that were going to be at the Gold Cup coming into this window. 7 more teams punched their ticket. So let's start with the Gold Cup qualification and then circle back to the Nations League. So the 7 teams that punched their tickets this window, Costa Rica, Jamaica, Honduras, Guatemala, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, and Guadeloupe. In our preview show, I think we liked a few teams really strongly. Costa Rica was one of those teams. They looked the part, pretty much dominated Belize end to end. Belize was able to score 1 goal in the second leg, but I don't think either of us were really surprised with that result.
No, not at all. They made it seem as easy as we expected. So they're looking strong. Totally to script for sure.
Yeah. Jamaica, Honduras, I think in the same bucket for us. Those were probably the 3 we felt strongest about. Jamaica had a little bit of trouble with Vinci Heat, though.
They did. They did. That first leg, it was pretty insane, to be honest. St. Vincent played really well, and they were seconds away from clinching a 1-0 victory, and then they ended up giving a late penalty away to Jamaica, and you just kind of felt the momentum shift in that instant. You kind of knew, okay, the home leg for them is done. They're headed to Kingston. Like, there's no way. And sure enough, second leg, it was 3-0, pretty comfortable when all is said and done for Jamaica. They got on the score sheet midway through the first half, and then just continued to add to their lead in the second half. And yeah, that was that. So again, Jamaica is a team that blows hot and cold. You never know right now exactly what you're going to get with them. But we felt pretty confident that they were going to get to the Gold Cup. It would have been a very big surprise if they hadn't. And credit to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I mean, they did what they needed to do almost at home.
Yeah, and Jamaica scored that equalizer in the 94th in the second leg. There was an 89th minute OG. There was a 94th minute goal for Jamaica. Up to the 85th minute in both games combined, it was 1-1. And Jamaica had 3 late goals on their ledger. The second leg, I think Jamaica did really dominate that game. Without the goals at the end, a 1-0 scoreline, I think they probably deserved a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
All right, so Jamaica is in. Honduras also in. And Honduras made it even more difficult because they went down 2-0 to Bermuda in the first leg. And they needed to respond, and they didn't respond until the second half in that first match. So
yeah,
it was a surprise for me to see Bermuda that energized out of the gate.
It was a very pleasant surprise, especially considering they didn't have Naki Wells, who is a big playmaker for them. And where he was, no idea. He played for his club before the break. He played for his club today. Really, to be honest, a bit disappointing that he didn't want to show up for these matches. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking. It's disappointing, but for Honduras, it was a bit surprising to see them, leaky like they were against this Bermuda team, and it just makes me question a little bit. A lot of people rate them very highly, especially as we move back into World Cup qualifying heading into the June window. And I just wonder, once we get into this next round in CONCACAF, where, everybody, all the quote unquote big fish are into this next round, it just makes me question a little bit about Honduras. Like, are they going to be able to do this? Like, there's a lot of people who are out there thinking that they're going to be one of the 3 CONCACAF teams. And I think offensively, they have the firepower to do it. It's the defense that worries me. That's a discussion, maybe for a deeper discussion for another time, perhaps. They got the job done here. That even in the second leg, they didn't quite look horribly comfortable, if I'm going to say that. Like, the second leg was only a 2-0
win. I know.
Yeah, exactly at home against Bermuda. And so I think you have to credit Bermuda. They came out, they went for it, they did their best. They fell short ultimately, but I think it's a performance that they could be proud of. And for Honduras, sure, you could be proud. You should be at the Gold Cup, absolutely. But there might be some question marks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It was not all that a convincing performance for me, which is kind of strange to say. It's like, looking back, they won by 4 goals in aggregate over 2 legs. And I think coming into this, if we had said, okay, Honduras is going to beat Bermuda by 4 goals combined, it's like, yeah, I mean, I think I would probably expect that. That seems like a reasonable landing spot, but the way that they did it was not how I would have expected.
Well, right, yeah, I would agree. And you and I both know that Bermuda is not like a Belize, right? Like, I think they're a little bit better than Belize, maybe. At least I think so. And also, I think Costa Rica is better than Honduras. So it's, I don't know if that's an apples to apples comparison. So that may not be the best comparison, but still, I agree with you. It's interesting. And I thought Luis Palma had a really good window for Honduras. Like, he stepped up when the team needed him. He was the one that got the equalizer in the first leg. He scored again in the second leg. Like, he did really well, which is good to see. So
absolutely. Well, those 3 we felt good about. After that, I think it was probably a toss-up for both of us for most of these.
Yeah.
One of those, Guyana and Guatemala. And Guyana had a 3-2 lead. They actually had a 3-1 lead in the first leg, but the first leg finished 3-2, and it was wide open in the second leg, and Guatemala got a quick equalizer, but for most of that game, these two teams were aggregate. Oh, can't even speak. Sorry, these two teams were level on aggregate. Excuse me, and Guatemala and Guyana, it was just back and forth. Who's going to find this winning goal? Ultimately, it was Guatemala finding the goal at home.
Yeah, this was a great tie. I was so pumped after the first leg because we finally saw Isaiah Jones have this stellar performance for Guyana. Like,
Yep.
scored a hat trick in that first leg. He was electric, looked really solid. I'm looking forward to seeing him in June once again for them. I think he has a lot to offer to this team. So it was pretty exciting to see them come away with that, that aggregate lead, that first leg win. I think that was huge for their confidence. And then going to Guatemala is it's a tough atmosphere. Like, it's a tough place to play. Like, it's a packed house. They're loud. Like, the humidity, and I mean, I'm sure they have that in Guyana as well, but it's a tough place to go. And so, yeah, their second leg was a bit disappointing. But the Guatemala did it. They got through, and, credit to them that they're probably a team that you and I have been talking about as moving up within CONCACAF, and I don't think Guyana is far behind them, and that's why we were so excited about this tie.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of a bummer that they couldn't get a result away from home.
Yeah, I think they're pretty much level in terms of quality right now.
Mm-hmm.
Guyana's obviously gotten a lot better. Guatemala, I'll be curious to see what they do with the Gold Cup. Depending on the draw and how the group goes, they're going to be in pot 3, which is nice. I could see them making a run to maybe get out of the group if they draw Honduras or Jamaica. I think that's definitely possible. So definitely a team to keep an eye on for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think just going back on Guyana as well, I think going into June, they've got Nicaragua, which I think will be a really interesting match in terms of the group. So something to keep an eye on. We're already kind of looking a little bit ahead towards the June window. But good job, Guatemala. You got there, and yeah, let's see what you can do.
Yeah, and the June window, finally, we will see the other half of this round of World Cup qualifying in CONCACAF. It's been a year. 2 matches were played. The teams have sat idle in World Cup qualifying for almost a year. So definitely looking forward to seeing what happens in June.
Yeah. I guess, sorry, I know I'm harping on Guyana a lot, but that's because I feel like this was not a coming out party, but it was a good performance by them all around. I thought, this was really the first time that they've had Mariah Welsh in the team. I think along with who am I thinking of right now? Nathan Mariah Welsh, along with Stephen Duke McKenna. It's hard to play both those guys at the same time, but they both featured in these legs. I thought that was a really positive step. Right, I already talked about Isaiah Jones. We talked about I want to mention Omari Glasgow. It's cool to see these CONCACAF nations start to build up like this, right? And I'm looking forward to them going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Trinidad and Tobago, I think dispatched Cuba a little bit more easily than we would have expected.
Yeah.
And Trinidad just, they got the win. Again, another match where the host Cuba in the first leg went up. It seems like a lot of these teams that were hosting first seem to go up in their games against teams that were likely favored. Trinidad came back. They did win that game 2-1. But the reverse fixture in Trinidad was just domination. 4-0 Trinidad, 6-1 on aggregate. Cuba was a team I think we thought would be more competitive than that. But,
Yeah.
I mean, Trinidad clearly looked like the better team and the team that deserved to go to the Gold Cup.
Yeah, really impressed. And so now I'm not really sure what to make of them. I am honestly a bit surprised that they made it through. Like, we knew it would be tight, but Dwight York has done an amazing job with them in the short amount of time that he has been there already. And we have to give credit. We have to give a shout out to Lee Isaiah, who absolutely was incredible the entire window. I think he scored four goals. Let me double check that, but three. Yeah, it was crazy. First half brace in the second leg. He was electric, and I'm very surprised. That they are in a tough group for World Cup qualifying in June. Just to kind of touch on that briefly. Like, they've got to face Costa Rica, which I think will be really tough for them. But, this was promising, and I'm very curious to see what they could do at the Gold Cup. Like, Cuba was, again, a team that neither of us have taken lightly. And, I know you've felt particularly strongly about Cuba.
Did I? I love Trinidad in this fixture. I knew it was going to be a dominant performance. No, I did like Cuba. I think Trinidad is better than we thought, and they've been on that cusp and have had bit of a downturn more recently, but I'm looking at the top 5 of Mexico, Canada, Panama, USA, Costa Rica. Outside of that, I think it's wide open, and you have Jamaica, Honduras, Trinidad, Haiti, Guatemala. I don't see any reason why Trinidad can't be right in the mix at the top of that next group.
Well, yeah, but yes, I agree. For me though, it's just so weird. Like, I feel like it's come on so quickly. Like, I kind of expected it, when they decided that they were going to hire Dwight York. Like, I expected things to improve, or at least I guess I hoped that they would, because I think he's a good manager, and I think he fits them very well. I think he's a very good fit, and I think we saw that in this window. So, yeah, very curious to see what they could do. And again, I'm stunned. 4-0 over Cuba in the second leg. Like, 4-0. Like, that's pretty crazy. So good for them.
It was surprising. So, but yes, good for them, and looking forward to seeing them at the Gold Cup too. So the last 2 fixtures, so Suriname took out Martinique, and I think we were both hinting at that in the preview show, and we've been talking about Suriname for some time. I think you a little more so than I have, and really waiting for them to break through. They've qualified for the Gold Cup, and not only that, with the updated CONCACAF rankings, they were actually able to sneak into pot 3 for the Gold Cup. So not only will they be at the Gold Cup, they will be in pot 3, and that gives them a chance also to potentially even get out of the group.
Yeah. One more quick thing on Trinidad. I want to make sure we throw this in there, is that this is the 4th time in a row that they've reached the Gold Cup, that matches their overall record. Like, they've only done this one other time. So credit to them for getting that done. In terms of Suriname, yeah, like, this wasn't very pretty. We expected it to be tight, and it was. But they ended up getting the job done. And they did it without a lot of their best players, right? Like, we talked about this in the preview show. No Geraldo Becker, who's playing at Real Sociedad. He wasn't there. No Dylan Vente, he's playing in the Netherlands with Pek Zwolle. No Justin Lawnbike, who's playing in Denmark with Viborg. And no Etienne Vassen either in goal, who is like their starting goalkeeper, right? So they were missing some key players, and to pull through like this, I think, is promising. yeah, it's. I think the other piece too is they did not initially call up Emmanuel Farai to these matches, but he played a huge role. As some of these other players I just mentioned pulled out of the squad, he was called in, and it's probably a good thing that he was because he was a big playmaker for them. So I'm hoping or wondering now if they are going to start cluing into this. And I don't even know why he wasn't in the squad in the first place. I think I saw something like maybe it was an injury or they weren't sure if he was going to recover in time or whatever. I don't know if that's actually the case or not, but it's a good thing he was there. So for Suriname, this is a step in the right direction. And, if they want to get to the level that they're aiming for, if they want to try to crack into that top tier in CONCACAF, they have to be at the Gold Cup.
Yeah, they do. And they haven't been much because they were there in 2021. That was the only Gold Cup they've been to since 1985. And so this will be their second Gold Cup in the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Which just remarkable. I mean, they're part of CONCACAF. So
yeah.
To go that long and qualify that few times is remarkable. And then on the flip side, Martinique's actually been to the last 4 Gold Cups. They're pretty much a mainstay. And that's with a smaller fields, with larger field, but Martinique's got a lot of Gold Cup experience and a team that's there often. And so for Suriname to flip this, not even concede a goal against Martinique, pretty impressive. And to your point, you have to imagine they're going to bring an even stronger squad to the Gold Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. For Suriname to shut down a player like Brighton LeBeau, who is like lights out right now in France and who continues to perform as well for Martinique, that's pretty impressive. So, we talked to you in the preview. This is a matchup between two teams that ideally I think both of us would like to see at the Gold Cup. So it's kind of unfortunate that Martinique has to sit this one out. But it is what it is. And again, as you just mentioned, I think Suriname, I know there are players in the works that they're attempting to bring in right now. They're just waiting for FIFA clearance. Like Danilo Doki is one of them at Union Berlin. Javier Diorosin at Club America in Mexico is another one. Nice winger. He could be a good addition. And then another one that I've heard recently is Crescencio Somerville for West Ham. So he would be a good addition for them too. And there's a guy at Leeds as well. He's their starting striker. His name is escaping me right now, but he would be a good addition. He's come out recently and said
Pirro?
That he
Pirro,
yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. Pirro. Yeah. He's come out recently and said that he's focusing on Leeds, so he's not interested at the moment, which is a bit of a bummer because I think he could be a really good addition for them. He would be solid. I don't know if he would start over Becker or not, or maybe he would start together with him. I don't know. Maybe you could look at different options, but he would definitely add some depth at the very least. So
sure.
Yeah, still lots to be excited about for Suriname.
Yeah. And then so the last tie was Guadeloupe and Nicaragua. Similar result, 2 1-0 victories, but in favor of Guadeloupe. And another team that you've been high on and was your preferred French overseas territory to my Martinique. But it appears that you have won this battle after the Nations League went the other way. Guadeloupe also 3rd consecutive Gold Cup. Nicaragua has missed out on their 3rd consecutive Gold Cup, even though they did technically qualify for the last one. Ultimately didn't make it there, but another 3rd time in a row for Guadeloupe. And a lot of these CONCACAF nations we're telling a similar story. Just they're finding new players, they're bringing new guys into the squad. I don't remember a time in CONCACAF with this much change in squads and finding new players and bringing players from Europe and all of these things that I think is making CONCACAF a lot tougher now.
Yeah. So I agree that you look at this Guadeloupe squad and It's exciting. If they can bring a similar squad to the Gold Cup, like they will contend. I don't know how far they're gonna get, but they will contend. Like again, guys like Zoran Moko, who we've talked about, he made his debut for them last year. He's currently playing in the third tier of France, but he's not going to be there for very long because he's doing really well. And so he's exciting. You've got Noah Cadillo, who's playing in the second tier in France, but he's having a really good season with Rodez. I mean, it's so interesting. And then on the flip side, for Nicaragua, I don't know what to think, to be honest. Like again, this was a tie that we knew was going to be really tight.
Yep.
And yeah, it's unfortunate, I guess, that that they miss out once again, and that they are a team that I think has struggled for goals a little bit. That's probably what ended up letting them down. They got shut out twice, so obviously that's what let them down. But you could kind of look at past results in Nations League as well, and even not necessarily World Cup qualifying because they played some quote-unquote lesser teams and blew them out. But, in League A, they didn't score against Jamaica. They scored 1 goal against Cuba. They beat French Guiana only by 1 goal, and they ended up scoring 3 against them in the reverse leg. So, it's just interesting to kind of look at that and try to assess where they stand.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, credit to Guadeloupe. Like I'm excited to see them at the Gold Cup. I think if they can bring a similar squad, they'll have a good chance of getting deep into the tournament, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. And on Nicaragua, I feel like they're doing what I feel like Honduras has done for quite some time and they have good players, they have some success, but then they kind of get stuck in neutral. And as we mentioned, all these other teams are bringing in fresh players and looking to find new players. I don't get that feeling with Nicaragua. Like they're, we found these, 3, 4, 5 players that we're looking to bring in that are going to really invigorate the squad. It seems like a relatively consistent squad to me, and I do wonder if they've kind of maxed out what they can do with this group of players.
That is a very valid point. Yeah.
All right. So those are our 7 winners that are heading to the Gold Cup this summer. They will join 9 other teams, which we have mentioned at various points. But looking forward to seeing all 15 CONCACAF nations and invited guest Saudi Arabia at the Gold Cup.
Should we review? Should we say who the final is? Okay, so I have it pulled up, so I'll run through it. So Haiti's in, El Salvador's in, Curaçao's in, United States, Panama, Dominican Republic. We need to talk about Dominican Republic real quick. Canada, Mexico, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, Jamaica, Guadeloupe, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Honduras, and Saudi Arabia. So that is your field for the Gold Cup, and the draw is on April 10th. So
yes, which is coming up very soon.
Yes, we're looking forward to that. I just want to talk about the Dominican Republic real quick.
Please do. Please do.
They didn't have any competitive matches in this window. They had friendlies. They played Puerto Rico twice, and I'm very excited for Dominican. I guess and people who've listened to the show, they know that this is where I'm at with them, but I'm dead serious when I say I think that team can really go far in the Gold Cup, especially because it's going to be happening at the same time as the Club World Cup. So you're going to have weaker teams from Mexico, Canada, and the United States, potentially. And and there's already talk about the United States bringing a lot of MLS players. So it's just going to be very interesting to see what ends up happening with that. But in terms of Dominican Republic, Mariano Diaz finally played again. He scored again, so he's played 2 matches for them, and in each match he scored, He doesn't have a club right now. He needs to find a club situation. Like somebody in MLS or Liga MX should really pick him up. Like I think he could still be a valid playmaker for those teams.
I would love to see him on a Liga MX squad.
Yeah, and get him into shape and like let's go, right? Like let's get him into shape before the June window when World Cup qualifiers, because there's a crazy scenario where the Dominican Republic, if they beat Guatemala, like they could just totally throw the group. It would be insane.
Yep.
So, we saw Peter Gonzalez for the first time with them this window. We saw I'm drawing blanks, but there are a few other players that they've been waiting for a really long time to get into the squad, and they were. So it's just a really exciting time. And there was a rumor that broke this week, and that's all it is. It's just a rumor, so I don't know if this is actually going to happen. But there's rumors floating around now that Paulo Rosario, who currently plays for Nice and has been a potential target for the Dominican Republic for a very long time, is going to join up for the June window. So they continue to look for ways to strengthen, and there's just a lot of momentum behind them right now. So I'm super excited to see how this all plays out. And if they can bring a very similar squad to what they brought this month in June, like we could be having some very exciting conversations.
Yeah. Which is unbelievable, because this is the first time they have ever even been at the Gold Cup. They've never qualified for the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
Since, it's been around for 60 years. And, a couple times they didn't enter qualification, but they've been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last 7 rounds, they tried qualification, didn't qualify, 10, 13, 14. Yeah, they've entered qualification 14 times prior to this one, never making it. So it's their first Gold Cup, and I agree. I think not only, they're not just going to be hey, we're just happy to be here team. They're going to be very competitive, and the quality of that team has improved so much. I don't know if they'll be able to get out of the group. I think that might be a little bit of a stretch to finish top 2, but I think they're going to be pretty competitive, and I'm looking forward to seeing them a lot.
Yeah. Okay. My Dominican Republic moment is done. We can move
All right.
on.
Well, speaking of teams we're not looking forward to seeing, let's pivot to the U.S. And so the top 4 teams which qualified, Mexico, Canada, Panama, U.S., 3 of those teams won a game this window, and the 4th did not, was the United States. They lost in the semifinals. They lost in the 3rd place match. Not a very convincing performance from them. Panama was able to get a goal towards the end. The team mobbed Thierry Henry in celebration.
That was one of the best moments of this window. It was amazing. You are my idol. You are my idol.
It really was. If you haven't seen that, definitely look up the Panama goal against the United States, because the whole team just mobbed Thierry Henry, who is now not broadcasting. He works for CBS Sports doing the pregame and Champions League and things like that. And so he's at a table right on the end of the pitch, and the team just ran off the pitch and just mobbed and hugged Thierry Henry.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Like, I think he ended somehow. Who ended up with a signed jersey? Did they exchange?
It was it was Waterman. Yeah, the guy who scored the goal. That was his. He was the one that scored, and he was the one that was the first one to run up there and give him the hug. And he was the one that was shouting, "You are my idol! You are my idol!" Right? And it was kind of funny too, because Clint Dempsey, who many of you might be familiar with, I would assume, was totally pissed. His team probably just lost, and now they're all celebrating right in front of him, because he's part of that studio team as well. So yeah, that was an interesting moment, but it was a cool moment for Waterman. I think, in Panama.
It was. Panama ultimately lost to Mexico in the final. I think people were probably hoping for another Mexico-USA Nations League final. That has happened on multiple prior occasions, but I mean, you can't say the U.S. really deserved it, and especially with their performance against Canada in the third place game. I mean, I don't think it's surprising that the USA finished where they did. Um, the latest CONCACAF national team rankings, the USA dropped to fourth. Um, that might be where the team is right now, the fourth best team in CONCACAF.
Yeah, I can't feel like it's too inaccurate at the moment. Like just two really dismal performances. Like the game against Panama, we just lacked everything. Like energy, creativity, it just wasn't there. And it's tough because Pulisic is really like the only creator in the team. Like there's not like Weston McKennie. Sometimes he can show up like that. Tyler Adams, not really. He just kind of shuts down everything in front of him or tries to. And then Musa is kind of hit or miss. So yeah, it just feels kind of meh, like right now, which isn't a great feeling. But at the same time, you know, Pochettino has his work cut out for him. And, you know, he's been in the position now for, well, he was announced in the September window. So he's had October, November, and this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we've seen a whole lot yet. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that. I guess the other thing I would add with the States too is, and I don't know how much of a difference this would have made, but it is true. They were missing Robinson, who adds a lot to the attack going forward down the flanks.
Yeah.
Dest has been out for a really long time, and they didn't have Pepe either, who is one of the main goal scorers. So, you know, there were some guys who were missing. What impact they could have had, I don't know. But, you know, you have to credit Panama as well. Like, I really admire Christensen, the manager. I think he does really well to make adjustments in game. I think that's one of his greatest strengths. And I feel like Panama is a bit of an underrated team. And I think it's true that now I think they were underrated coming into this window, and now I feel like I think third is like justifiable.
Yeah. I'm Panama's right there with the US and probably Canada. And I mean, even the Mexico game, it was 1-1. I know, you know, it wasn't as even, but it was still 1-1 until stoppage time. So Panama's tough. They've continued to be tough. Just the only other comment I had on the US is you were, you know, mentioning some of the players they're missing, and I'm looking at, you know, Mexico, and Raul Jimenez scored all 4 of their goals. He scored 2 in the first game. He scored 2 in the second game. I mean, when's the last time the U.S. could say we had a striker that scored 4 goals in 2 games?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
that's exactly my point, and that's the reason why we put Raul Jimenez in our team of the window, right, as our center forward, because, you know, he was a total redemption arc. Like it's like he's back, you know, and I think at this point I'm convinced enough to say that like Mexico's probably back on top of CONCACAF.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think we should talk a little bit about Canada too, because I don't know, I'm not sure if I expected them to beat Mexico. I actually think that's what I predicted in our preview show. So maybe I did expect that, but I am slightly disappointed because I was hoping that they would put in a little bit of a better shift, you know. And I was talking to somebody on Twitter, and he's like, "Well, you know, we were in a hostile environment, you know, 40,000 screaming Mexican fans, and you know, and our star player got injured or was playing injured or whatever, you know." And they're obviously talking about Davies, who now it's come out afterwards that he's going to be out for a long time with another ACL injury, which sucks. But
it does.
I don't know. I guess I was expecting a little more from Canada, and I don't feel like they delivered. And I mean, they did well in the third place match against the United States. I will give them credit there.
Yeah.
But if they really want to, you know, talk the talk, they still have work to do in order to overtake Mexico at this point in time. And I think that was what came out of this window. I mean, there's a lot of promise there. Like, promise David, haha. This was good to see him. Jebison as well, and those are new faces. Those are guys that are still learning how they fit in the team. And so still work for Canada to do, I guess is really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, the thing that I think is just, it's disappointing when you concede so early, and Mexico scored in the first minute against them.
Yeah.
And, you come in and you plan, there was a lot of time between the last window and this window, and to immediately go down, I think just mentally is just very difficult, because you've been planning and just immediately your plans change.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think if they came together again, I don't know that we would see the same result. I mean, we may. I definitely agree. It's, Mexico definitely has home advantage in LA. That is very obvious. So it is a tough environment, and they just started so poorly that I think it just really threw them off. So I think they're a better team than they showed. But yeah, I do agree with you, though, that it feels like Mexico is back on top of CONCACAF.
Well, yeah, and I think for Canada, that's one of the learning curves that they're facing right now. Is they have to learn how to win in those hostile environments, right? Because it doesn't matter really where you play, unless maybe it's in Toronto or Vancouver. If you're playing somewhere in the U.S. or in Mexico, then obviously it's going to be a hostile environment. So just like Panama, just like the United States, they've all had to learn that you have to be able to mentally get into the game in those environments, right? Like, you can't let that affect you. And Canada, I think, is still learning that. I think they'll get there. I really do. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think if they played that match over again, which they may in the Gold Cup, who knows? It may end up being a different story.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a lot of CONCACAF. And it was an exciting window for CONCACAF, honestly. There were a lot of head-to-head matchups. And I know you want to make some more points on CONCACAF before we move on.
Yeah, so just before we move on, I do want to talk about Haiti real quick, because they went over to Europe this month to play Azerbaijan. That was their only match, and they ended up winning 3-0. And that is a good result for them. Like, okay, Azerbaijan is like kind of bottom of like UEFA. And they're a team that is on a downward slump at the moment.
Yeah.
But Haiti has only ever won one other time against a European nation. That was it against Poland in 1974. And the other time they played a UEFA nation, they've either drawn or lost. So this is promising. I'm happy about that result for them, and it was pretty dominating, if we're being honest. Like, I watched that game, and Azerbaijan didn't really threaten a whole ton, and I think it was largely due to the fact that Haiti was playing so well. They looked really good going forward. Their defense looked pretty good this time around. Was promising. So yeah, super pumped about Haiti too. I'm very curious. They're another team that I think if they bring close, or if they bring their best squad possible or close to it, I think they can go pretty far in the Gold Cup as well.
Yeah. I'm looking at Haiti to qualify for the World Cup. Like, yeah. I think they are certainly good enough to do it.
Yeah, and they're in the conversation.
I would have been, frankly, concerned if they had not handled Azerbaijan pretty easily.
Yeah.
Because at this point, just from a ranking standpoint, I've got Haiti well above Azerbaijan.
Sure.
And so I was expecting that despite their not so exciting history against UEFA. Um, but the fact that they showed that, it's like, okay, that's what you should do against lesser opposition. You
Yeah,
think about some of the teams in UEFA, even like the teams around the middle, like that's what you typically would see from them
yeah.
against an Azerbaijan. So is Haiti a top 50 or 60 team in the world? Probably. Like, I think they're probably in that ballpark. And for a 48 team World Cup, like they can definitely be there
Yeah. Yeah, they passed the litmus test.
for sure. For sure. All right. Any other notes on
No others.
CONCACAF?
No, that will wrap up CONCACAF.
Okay. Well, there are fewer teams to talk about in OFC, only 4 teams. And so we had 3 matches played in OFC, and all were single legs. The semifinals and finals both took place in New Zealand. New Caledonia and Tahiti were the first semifinal. New Zealand and Fiji was the second semifinal. New Caledonia and Tahiti was the one that coming into the window we felt was kind of a toss up, and we weren't really sure which way that would go. Had some positive things to say about New Caledonia is a team that I think going into the group stage, which took place back in October, November, they were definitely a team that I was excited about and you were excited about, and just were relatively unknown, hadn't got a lot of exposure, but were doing some good things that we were excited about. And they ended up pretty much dominating Tahiti end to end and won 3-0 to advance to the final. So were you surprised to see that scoreline?
I wasn't really surprised. I woke up at 2 a.m. to watch that game, and
I couldn't do it. I thought about it and I was like, I want to watch this game, but you're more committed than I am.
So it was a good game. It was 0-0 at halftime, and then New Caledonia made some adjustments, and they came out in the second half, and Georges Gope Fenapage, just incredible goal from like just past the halfway line. Ridiculous. He made our team of the window, as he should. He scored twice in that match against Tahiti, which was really basically like a final for them.
Yeah.
And so they've booked their ticket now to the Intercontinental Playoff. And once again, I was pretty impressed with them. I thought even against New Zealand in the final, they took New Zealand to 0-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty positive. Like, they really frustrated Chris Wood. Like, he could not, and unfortunately he got injured shortly after halftime, which was a bummer, but he could not find anything against them. Like, they really keyed into to that. They did try really hard not to give up a lot of set pieces, and that is an area where they were a bit weak. And New Zealand knew that, and New Caledonia knew that, and so they didn't want to concede a whole lot of corners. And you could see the frustration when those guys let in some corners sometimes. They were visibly frustrated by that.
Yep.
But they did pretty well, and ultimately it was set piece that undid them, and then from there it just kind of opened the floodgates a little bit.
Yep.
But the end result, 3-0 against New Zealand, is it was 7-0 against Fiji. So,
yeah.
New Caledonia, I think, can take a lot of courage from that result, and they did well against Tahiti, and so they have a huge opportunity ahead of them. They have a year to prepare for this playoff, and they need to make the most out of it.
Yes.
I don't know what their financial situation is as a federation, but like, they should be having conversations right now with Koba Coindretti, who we've talked about at length, so I'm not going to go into that. But there's another guy, Angelo Fulgini, at Lens right now, who would be great. He would be a great addition to the team. So if they haven't had conversations with those players, I hope that they open them up soon and that those players are potentially interested, because, look, I'll be honest with you, they're not going to play for France. So this could be a golden opportunity for them to, if nothing else, you're basically playing in I don't know. I don't even know what to call it. It's not the World Cup, but it's almost as close as you can get without it being. I mean, I guess it is a qualifier.
Yeah.
But like, why not? Why wouldn't you take advantage of that, right? Like, this opportunity isn't going to come around at least for another 4 years, and then also, 4 years from now, who knows where the team's going to be at? This New Caledonia team has some old heads on it. They may not be as good in the next cycle as they are right now. So now I really feel like strongly that this is like the opportunity for New Caledonia to take advantage of this. And like, why not just schedule some matches, some friendlies on the West Coast? Get accustomed to what life is like in the U.S. Play in LA, play in San Diego. That reduces a little bit like the travel. I mean, it depends on who your opponents are and stuff, but there's going to be teams available. There's going to be teams in Asia available. There's going to be teams in CONCACAF available, especially as we get later in the year when there's no World Cup qualifying for everybody who's getting dumped out in June. These are going to be, there's no Nations League, so there's going to be teams who have open windows. Like, let's get playing them, because New Caledonia could be drawn against a CONCACAF team. So why wouldn't you?
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. So, public service announcement to the New Caledonia Football Federation. Joe wants to help you add players to your squad. He's got all the players at his disposal that he knows are eligible for New Caledonia, and wants to help you convince them that they should play for New Caledonia. So reach out to Joe at Window INTL Pod. Because you're right. This is an opportunity that who knows if there all kinds of things can change in 4 years' time. What's going to happen with the allocations of who qualifies? Maybe OFC doesn't get an automatic qualifying spot next time around. Maybe New Zealand decides to move. Maybe OFC combines with something else, and that might be unlikely. Maybe the field doesn't stay at 48. I mean, there are all these different things that you just don't know ahead of the next World Cup that could change. Maybe not. They might find themselves in the same position, but you're going to have players that are 4 years older. And to your point, they may not be in as good a position. I wanted to also talk, though, a little bit about the Interconfederation playoffs and who's actually going to be there, and just give you some hypothetical scenarios. So it's going to be New Caledonia. It's going to be an AFC team, a CAF team, a CONMEBOL team, and 2 CONCACAF teams. Those are the 6 teams that are going to be in the Interconfederation playoffs. So CONMEBOL, let's say it's Venezuela, that's 7th place spot. AFC, I'll just throw, I don't know, UAE out there. CAF, Burkina Faso, might be a team that doesn't win their group but is well positioned. And then CONCACAF, maybe we throw out, I don't know, Jamaica and Honduras. And so maybe that's your field, your hypothetical field: Jamaica, Honduras, Venezuela, Burkina Faso, UAE, and New Caledonia. I'm not that optimistic about New Caledonia in that field right now, as things stand.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I'm saying what I'm saying because I hope they take advantage of it. Like, it's a huge opportunity, and for them to fall short in terms of preparation, I think I would be upset about it.
Yeah. No, that's very fair.
Like, New Zealand's already preparing. Like, they've now in June, they're playing in this new cup that Canada's putting together with Canada, Ukraine, New Zealand, and Ivory Coast. And so that's a great opportunity for New Zealand to get some high quality matches, and we need New Caledonia to have an opportunity to do something similar. So that's all I'm saying. I don't disagree. I think, I'm not saying that they're going to qualify for the World Cup. Yeah, because you never know. That's football. Yeah. Like, they could totally shock the world. I don't think that they're going to, but they could.
My comments are based on who's on the squad now, and maybe they add 3 or 4 players
right
after getting in contact with you. And you never know. And maybe they do that. And, it is going to be a strong field. Obviously, it's the last round to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a strong field. But I think they would have an improved chance if they continue to find players that can help them.
Yep.
So, but I think overall this kind of went as we expected end to end. It was always going to be New Zealand. We said that pretty much in every single show we did about OFC. So not really surprised there, but I am glad New Caledonia put up a good final round, and they certainly didn't get battered, and to keep New Zealand to 0-0 at halftime, and they fought New Zealand as well as they could.
Yeah, they did. It was a good showing by them. I'm very pleased. And for me, in that leg against Tahiti in the semifinal, like, again, another moment of the window for me. It's like there's a picture we tweeted it out, and then I turned it into an animation the other day, and it's of Gope Fenapage, and he's running through the field celebrating his goal, and it's just I love that. I think it's so cool. It just means so much to these guys, right? And that's what I love. That's what I love.
Yeah. Oh, that was OFC. So only 3 matches in OFC, but we have New Zealand that has punched their ticket to World Cup 2026. And that will be the last we hear from the OFC, and at least in terms of World Cup qualifying, until New Caledonia picks up their campaign about a year from now.
Yep. Unless, of course, they get some matches, then maybe they'll be part of our conversation once again.
Yes.
So.
Yes. All right. So we are going to continue into World Cup qualifying, and we're going to pivot to CAF now. So we are now 6 of 10 match days through in CAF. I guess before we get into all the groups, I think we should probably talk about Group E a little bit and what is happening there, because that's really holding up qualification. And what I mean by that is, there are 9 6-team groups. Group E has Eritrea who withdrew prior to the start of qualifying. So Group E was down to 5 teams even before they started. It was assumed, so within each of the 9 groups, the group winners will qualify directly for the World Cup. The second place finishers, the top 4, will proceed to further qualifying. And there wasn't any certainty with that withdrawal of Eritrea how the second place table will be calculated. So what has happened in other qualifying campaigns, when a team withdraws and there's an unequal amount of teams, typically what happens is the matches against the last place team, if you're in a group with more teams, your matches against the last place team don't count towards that final table, to make it more fair and say, okay, we're comparing all teams over the same number of games. CAF did not actually come out and say that would be the process, but that was believed to be how it was going to be concluded. So that was the thought and prevailing thoughts headed into qualifying. Since that has occurred, and since qualifying began, Congo has been suspended, and initially started where they refused to play a match. They've since been suspended, and CAF has basically said their remaining matches are canceled. They've not allowed Congo to play at this point. Congo's still only played 3 matches in qualifying, and based on CAF looking to cancel their remaining matches, at this point, it doesn't look necessarily likely that they're going to play anymore. And so Group E is now, for the time being, and perhaps ultimately, down to 4 teams, while every other group has 6 teams. So CAF needs to figure something out for how they're going to determine who the second place teams are that advance to the next round. And so they haven't announced anything. There's still speculation, but will a second place team from Group E even be allowed to progress? There's a lot of unknown there. So we have some numbers. I ran the simulations, but we don't know if, at least for that second place positioning, what is going to happen. So do you know anything more about Congo at this point? I know we talked about them a little bit in prior shows, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot happening there.
It doesn't. There was a little bit of hype, I guess, right as the window started. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, and there's an account on Twitter, Joyeux Congolais, and
I like that one.
Yeah, they they were saying that the Ministry of Sport gave the keys back to the federation and that the ban was going to be lifted, and then it was like a day later they were like, nope, didn't happen. So yeah, nothing's really going on there, and yeah, they're just like locked in this stalemate. And so at this point, missing one window is bad enough. I think they're going to be hard pressed to do anything. I mean, they've got a negative 11 goal difference as it is and no points, so they're pretty much out of it anyways. But yeah, this group does throw everything a bit into chaos, and everybody kept telling me that Morocco was going to qualify in this window. Like, I know. No, they're not.
I know. I read it as well, and I saw you saying no, and I kept punching numbers in. I'm like, they're not qualifying this window.
No. But they will in September. They only need a point. So yeah,
they're close. They can still end up tied on points, but I mean, even nobody's going to catch them in goal differential anyway. But I can't possibly imagine Morocco just all of a sudden losing the rest of their games. No. So they'll be in. I think we felt really strongly that they would be in to start, but we don't know what's going to happen with Niger, Tanzania, and Zambia, and it's kind of been unfair thus far with how things have progressed and matches canceled and who's playing and who's not. I don't know that CAF is ultimately going to allow the second place team from this group to even be considered in the table. I don't know. I think it's going to be really, really tough for them to say, you lost 2 teams out of your group and you still have a chance. But at the same time, and like, it's not Tanzania or Niger's fault that these other countries had issues. So
yeah. Well, and those teams also have to. Yeah, it's really tricky. I was going to say that they have to get themselves into a position to even be eligible for that, right? Because there's a lot of other teams in second place that are on a higher point stand, but then at the same time, that's because they have the 2 opponents that this group doesn't have to play against, right? So there's not an opportunity for points there. So yeah, it's chaos, and it really needs to be sorted out quickly.
Yeah. It's and in classic CAF fashion, obviously, they're not rushing to any decision, and who knows when you're going to hear something. They're not going to tell you when they're going to make a decision, but it is one of those things that we've played 6 of 10 match days at this point. You've got match day 7, and we're off until September, so 7 and 8 are September, 9 and 10 are October.
Yep.
So they do at least have some time, but they've got to announce something before September. Like, you can't have teams going into the last couple rounds of World Cup qualifying and not even knowing once the matches are done whether they're even progressing or not. Like, that's something you have to sort out. So as it stands, certainly a lot of chaos and a lack of clarity, really, for many teams that are going through qualifying right now. So we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, never a lack of drama in CAF. That is for sure.
Yeah.
So with that out of the way, we had some exciting football in CAF this window. And we'll start off in Group A, where Egypt has taken a pretty commanding lead, I think, over Burkina Faso. They're 5 points ahead, and Egypt looks really solid. It looks like they're going to qualify. I've got them 95, 96% to win the group. So a really strong favorite. But Burkina Faso's right there on 11 points. Sierra Leone, 8. Ethiopia, 6. Guinea-Bissau, a little bit disappointing on 6. And Djibouti on 1. A lot disappointing. Yeah, I definitely expected them to be more in the mix. But I think it's kind of shaking out where Burkina Faso is clearly the second best team in this group. And I think that should work towards their advantage as they're trying to qualify for the playoffs that people don't know how you qualify for.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. So I think we can pretty much set Egypt aside for now. I think this is basically done and dusted.
Yeah.
Burkina Faso had to come into this window and make up ground, and they did. They had a really solid match against Guinea-Bissau. We watched that game. Thank you, ESPN Plus. All these qualifiers available on your platform, which is fantastic. And
sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
How excited were you when you saw that they were all on ESPN Plus? Because
I was geeking, man.
This is so like in the United States, BN had been a provider for a long time, but it was select matches. You get like half, maybe a little bit less than half, which is still great. But I don't think we have ever in the United States before this window had every single match on one streaming platform. Like,
so I remember one of the, I don't know if it was World Cup qualifying. I think it might have been actually for the last World Cup was on ESPN as well. The AFCON wasn't. And that's what I remember being like, dude, why can't they just do both?
Yeah. Yeah. With as many teams going through qualifying and as many games as there were this window, to have all of them available, it was like years and years of streaming CAF through grainy sites with ads and black and white.
It was beautiful.
This was awesome. So please more of that.
Yes, please more of that. Yeah. But Burkina Faso had a great window. Lassina Traore made our team of the window. He was fantastic. Really impressed with Josue Tiendribiogo as well, who's a player that I know we've talked about on our show in the past. And I wrote about as well in January that they really needed to get him integrated into their squad. He's a creative midfielder, small in stature, but impressive. And yeah, he was impressive this month as well. And then, they also brought in the player who's currently playing for MC Algiers. Why am I drawing a blank? He was pretty good as well.
Zugrana?
Yeah, Zugrana, yeah. Mohamed Zugrana. I enjoyed watching him. He made his debut this window, and he lived up to the hype. Like, I thought he did pretty well. And he's one of the most highly rated midfielders playing in Africa right now. CAF Champions League and various things like that. So, yeah, super, super stoked about that. I guess on the flip side, in terms of Guinea-Bissau, like, man, just the air has completely gone out of their sails.
0 points from this window.
Yeah, that's terrible, and it's going to bite them, I think. Like, and the other thing too that is weird is I don't know if there's an exact coincidence, but I would like to think so. As soon as they brought in Beto. That's not entirely true. Like, it kind of started after AFCON. They started kind of going downhill, but they brought in Beto last year, and he just isn't they're just struggling for goals. Like they just can't do it. And they've dropped Frankie Lino to the bench, and I don't know. It's a weird thing. So again, a team on paper that looks really good, but they've now, with their -2 goal difference, they've dropped down below Ethiopia and Sierra Leone in the group. Like that's a bit shocking.
Yeah, the only team they've beaten in the last calendar year is Eswatini.
Yeah.
In my simulations, they did not get to even the playoffs in any of my simulations. So I've currently got them with a 0.00% chance of getting to the World Cup.
It sounds about right. I mean, Egypt has a 10-point lead on them. Burkina Faso has a 5-point lead on them. It just seems like a gulf too far now. So.
Yeah, and Guinea-Bissau finishes at Egypt.
Yeah, which is
Are you feeling like it's Burkina Faso for the second position? Do you think Sierra Leone or Ethiopia can make some noise?
I don't think Ethiopia can make noise. I think they've gotten their 2 wins over Djibouti, or is it 2 wins over Djibouti? I think. Anyways, I don't know. They've got 6 points, and I think that's probably where it ends.
They drew Djibouti the first match. They've picked up a couple.
Oh yeah, 3 draws. Also. That's right. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. I just don't see it with Ethiopia. Sierra Leone, on the other hand, really surprised me this window. I thought they put up a really good fight against Egypt.
Yeah.
And they also beat Guinea-Bissau, right?
They did.
Yeah, which
3-1.
Which was really surprising. I was not expecting that because, again, when I saw their roster come out for this window, I was like, what the heck is that? And they surprised me. So I don't know what to think about them right now. Like I don't see it. I don't see it at the moment. But maybe they'll surprise me and prove me wrong. I really think Burkina Faso did what they needed to do. They've got some momentum now.
Yeah.
It wasn't horribly pretty against Guinea-Bissau. I'm not sure I really expected it to be, but they got the job done, and that's what matters, to be able to get those results. So I think that's the 1-2 that will finish.
Yeah, I think so too. To me, I feel like this group is pretty clear. I've got Egypt at, like I mentioned, almost 96% to finish first. I've got Burkina Faso at 92% to finish second. So feeling very strongly about the 1-2 in this group.
Which would be great because Burkina Faso's never made a World Cup.
Yeah.
So, it would be pretty fun to see them. I mean, that was the whole reason for expansion. So it would be nice to.
Yeah, they're probably going to have to go through the playoffs, but.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And they're pretty well positioned. However, CAF decides to slice up the numbers. They're pretty well positioned, and I think should be one of those 4 teams to get in.
They could face like Senegal in that. Speaking of
Group
B,
it is possible. It is possible. Senegal is still behind the 8 ball here through 6 match days, which is just I can't believe that. I can't believe that. And
I can't either. But so let's move to Group B. So you've got DR Congo in first on 13 points. Senegal's right behind them on 12. Sudan now is on 12. Then you've got an 8-point gap down to Togo on 4, South Sudan on 3, and Mauritania on 2. And yeah, it's a bit surprising for Senegal. I think they can still pull ahead. They still have to face DR Congo again. So that's going to be a huge match. And I think we also have to talk about Sudan. This was not a good window for them.
It was not. And the goal from South Sudan to equalize against them, for me, the goal of the window.
The goal of the window? Oh man. Okay, explain why do you think it was the goal of the window?
Oh, I just thought it was just an amazing goal.
It was a good goal. It was a good goal. You are correct. I thought you meant somewhere. No, I thought you meant like goal of the window in terms of like the effect that it had, not
No,
because of
it was mostly meaningless, but I mean, not for
well,
Sudan, but
not for Sudan though. Yeah,
it
like that's
was,
a crushing blow for them.
yeah,
That's a match where they really needed to win, and Mo Issa scored the goal to put them ahead, and then that what was it? It was in like the 98th minute or
yep.
98th minute. I mean, it was super late, and it's hard to see Sudan coming back from that now. Like,
Yeah.
what a momentum killer that
And
was.
they got the draw against Senegal that I think
It was
they
a
may
huge
not be
result.
overly happy with, but coming into that, if you would have told them like, hey, you're gonna get a draw against Senegal and then get to play South Sudan, I think they would have been happy with that.
Yeah, exactly. Like this should have been a 4-point window for them, but instead it ended up
Yep.
being 2, and they lost first
Yeah.
place in the group. So, yeah. Just
Senegal's not looked great in qualifying.
no, they have not. They really have not. And I'm very curious to see how it goes for them for the rest of it. Like they're dropping a little bit. Like they're still a very good team. And so that's why I say, like, as we go forward and wrap up qualifying later in the year, like what Senegal's gonna are we gonna see a Senegal that rises up, or are we going to see what we've seen so far, which has kind of been hit or miss a little bit?
Which at the same time is really like surprising because they haven't lost in a year and a half.
Yeah.
And they're undefeated in 20 matches. They've only lost one match since the start of 2023.
Yeah.
Um,
but they don't look like they're playing well though.
They don't. And not only that, they've kept 7 clean sheets in a row. They've not conceded.
Yeah, those are all impressive numbers. They are, but it comes back to like form, I guess, in terms of how they're playing.
Yeah.
It's just not convincing.
Yeah, over this 20-game undefeated streak, they've conceded 4 goals. 4. They've had 16 clean sheets.
Yeah.
In 4 games, they've conceded 1 goal. And they're still not winning their group. And I agree, though. It's like the numbers on paper look impressive, but World Cup qualifying, it just hasn't come together for them yet.
Yeah.
And it's not the right place you want to be messing around, especially, getting a bunch of draws can be really detrimental in that second place table because you're not guaranteed anything in second place. And I think when we eventually get to Nigeria, the numbers don't look good for them. And, it's not because they're unlikely to finish outside of the top 2. It's because they're losing ground and only the top 4 second place finishers advance. So I don't know that I've got Senegal in that spot yet. Like I still do think they will win the group and qualify, but I am less certain than I was coming into this window for sure. And I've got them about 78%. I've got Congo DR about 22%. So it might be a little bit closer than that.
I am excited about Asane Diao though. I think that's a really good pickup by Senegal. Like that's gonna be exciting. But yeah, it's tight. It's really tight. So all to play for there.
Yeah. Anything else on this group? How are you feeling about Congo DR?
It's interesting that their squad does not change a lot. Like they don't call in a whole lot of new players. They're very consistent. They call on the same players to perform over and over again. And I mean, what can I say? It's working at this point. So
the only thing that's certain is the squad's not changing and you're not going to get a high scoring game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, all right. Any other notes before we move on to Group C?
No further notes.
All right. So let's move on to Group C. South Africa is pulling away, but they might not be pulling away, depending on an upcoming
Yeah.
decision, which I
Yeah.
think you're a little more in tune than I am. But they currently sit on 13 points atop the group. Rwanda's actually in second on 8 points. Benin in third on 8 points. Nigeria is down in fourth place on 7 points. Lesotho in fifth on 6 points, and Zimbabwe in last, which is kind of shocking considering they're going to AFCON, but they are on 4 points at the bottom of this group. So South Africa, for the time being, has a 5 point lead. I haven't seen all the details, but there are rumblings that they may have fielded an ineligible player against Lesotho. What do you know about that situation?
Yeah. So that is what has come out. Because the player had 2 yellow cards. And I believe it was Mokoena, but let me double check that real quick.
How do you not
Yeah, it
know
was
these things
Mokoena.
before the game?
Yeah. So yeah. There was some sort of administrative error apparently, and I don't know at this day and age I don't know how that happens. They weren't supposed to play him. He was supposed to be suspended for the Lesotho match, I guess, but he ended up starting in that game. So I don't know what's going to happen with this, and to be honest, I don't think that it's going to be terribly damaging to South Africa at the end.
Even if they forfeit it, you mean?
Correct. Yeah. It will make things interesting in the group because that would mean that instead of a 6 point gap to Nigeria, there's only a 3 point gap. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I think the one thing, or at least that I saw, and I don't know how true this is, but I guess Lesotho, if they were going to actually pursue this, I guess it's not, I don't know how, but I guess not necessarily a CAF thing. Like Lesotho has to like push this on their own accord. And I saw something the other day that said that they didn't want to spend the money to do that. I don't know if that's true or not. It seems like it would be a CAF thing in my opinion.
Yeah.
And not really much to do with the federation. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to end up happening.
Maybe some of those Nigerian princes will be willing to share their money, help Lesotho out.
Maybe it's definitely possible. So
I think Nigeria's probably got a stronger interest in this than Lesotho does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So again, don't know how something like that happens. It shouldn't happen. But it did. So something to watch going forward, I guess. And I would expect us to hear something about that probably before the September window. And I don't know how soon something will move with this. But yeah, it definitely made the rounds, and yeah, we'll just have to see. Let's talk about Nigeria because I know you have some numbers with them for qualification now because they had a terrible window. Wasn't good.
And it's amazing to say that, and Victor Osimhen scored 3 goals.
Yeah, I know.
But they did not defeat Zimbabwe. They
Right.
beat Rwanda 2-0, but they did not defeat Zimbabwe at home. Conceding a 90th minute equalizer. I mean, just absolutely brutal at the end. And yeah, I mean, I still do like Nigeria to finish second in this group. I've got them about 55-ish% to finish second, so better than 50-50 chance they get there. The problem is their point total. And when you look at other groups and where teams that are in second place sit on points, they're well ahead. And for Nigeria to crack the top 4 of that, you know, they really need to pretty much win out, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens if, the 3 points get dropped against the last place team. If that's Zimbabwe, that helps them. If it's not Zimbabwe, that hurts them because they're dropping wins instead of draws. Um, they've won one match in qualifying. I mean, I don't know how you can get into this top 4 second place teams winning one match. And, as things stand, and obviously there's still some flux around what's going to happen with the second place rankings, but I've got them with a 4% chance to win the group. If South Africa does drop those 3 points, I think that will probably bump up to, I would guess, somewhere in the 25% range, which is not bad, but only a 7% chance of getting to the playoffs. And so, you combine them together, you're looking at Nigeria with, call it a 5 or 6% chance of getting to the World Cup. And, that's kind of shocking with 4 matches to play that they just have that much going against him. But if South Africa doesn't relinquish that first place spot, I don't think Nigeria is getting one of the top 4 second place finishers.
Yeah. And Nigeria still has to go to South Africa and play them. So that'll be a tough one. They've got Rwanda and Benin at home. So those are all 3 of the teams that are above them in the table. They still have to play.
So the opportunity is there.
The opportunity is there. The opportunity is there on one hand. I think on the flip side, though, you're looking at 3 really tough matches.
Yeah.
I will say Rwanda was pretty disappointing in this window, if I'm being honest. They went through a manager change in January. Torsten Spittler left. He left this month, actually. Earlier this month, it was announced that he wasn't going to be staying. Rwanda brought in Adel Amrouche, and I don't know, it just wasn't what we had been seeing before with Rwanda, I guess. So a bit disappointing there, in my opinion. So we'll have to see with Rwanda. I feel like they're kind of trending down. And then, I don't know, Benin wasn't horribly convincing either. South Africa kind of brushed them aside with relative ease, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, I mean, only a 1-point window for Rwanda. They just got a draw with Lesotho, which is, Lesotho is a very stingy team, but again, those are games that you should be winning, especially if you want to try to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah.
And then same with Benin. They drew with Zimbabwe 2-2, and then they ended up losing to South Africa. So yeah. I don't know. The momentum of the table above Nigeria, it is. I think it's possible to see them try to get up into that second place. It just, as you've already mentioned, is it going to be enough? So
yeah, and this is a group, and I'll say the same thing in every conversation I ever have about numbers and odds. Drawing is much more detrimental than winning. And so what I mean by that is, like, if you just continue to draw and draw and draw, you're just going to drop, and getting 3 points is massive. So
yeah,
to see this many draws in this group, and Nigeria has 1 win, Lesotho's got 1 win, Rwanda's got 2, and you've played 6 matches, with the way that it's structured, you just can't do that and expect to progress. So yeah, I'm really concerned for Nigeria and expecting that they're not going to be able to do enough to even get out of this round.
Yeah, maybe in hindsight, this is a tougher group than we all anticipated. There's 5 teams in here that are going to be at AFCON.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is a very tough group, top to bottom. I think South Africa has kind of emerged as the best, but I mean, you look across the board on goal differential. South Africa's top at +5. The next best is Nigeria at +1. You got +1, 0, -1, -1, -4 is the worst. Nobody is an easy match in this group. So I think top to bottom, it is definitely a tough group.
Yeah, for sure. shout out to Jaden Adams for South Africa, who every time he came on in this window, he looked really good for South Africa. So that's
scored in both games.
Yeah, he's going to be a good one to watch going forward.
Absolutely. All right. So that is Group C. Group D is really getting interesting, and I think we're starting to believe maybe a little bit that Cape Verde could qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah, this will be quite something. They would probably be the smallest nation ever to qualify, right? They would have to be. I would have to believe
so.
Yeah.
It's smaller than Iceland, right?
Yeah,
definitely.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So they're really good. I mean, their match against Angola, I was very surprised. I expected Angola to do much better in this window than they did. And credit to Cape Verde and Livramento, who plays for Hellas Verona in Italy. He had a great game against Angola. He scored both their goals, and yeah, I mean it's pretty cool. Cape Verde in first, 13 points. Cameroon right behind them on 12, and then there's 4-point gap down to Libya, and a 5-point gap down to Angola. Between Cameroon and Angola. Angola's on 7, and then you've got Mauritius on 5 and Eswatini on 2. So yeah, pretty wild. Do you think Angola's out of it now?
I think it's a 2-team race basically at this point. I don't think any of Angola or Libya or Mauritius or Eswatini are going to make a run. I was really disappointed with Angola as well, and it's tough because that match against Cape Verde was their first loss in qualifying, and they were level up until the 63rd minute. So, with the exception of the last half hour, they've basically been, have not lost at all. And I just think they're too far down at this point. And you look in that middle column, and what do you see? 4 draws. Like, that will kill you in a format like this, where one team's qualifying and the second team might qualify. You just can't keep drawing, and they've only scored 4 goals in 6 matches, and it's just not enough.
Yeah.
If you need to win, you need to score.
Yeah. Their last match is against Cameroon in qualifying, which would be I think
they could play spoiler.
They could play spoiler. They definitely could. So yeah, because they don't play Cape Verde anymore. But Cape Verde has still to play.
They're hosting Cameroon in September.
Correct. And then they also go to Libya in October, and then the other 2 games they got Mauritius and Eswatini. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting finish in this group. Are you surprised by Cameroon? Are you surprised by Cape Verde? I'm sure you are.
I'm a little surprised by where things stand, because all else equal, I do kind of feel like Cameroon is a bit better than Cape Verde, but getting a bunch of 1-goal wins is very good, and getting a bunch of draws is not very good. And so Cape Verde has won 4 matches. They've only got a +2 goal differential, while Cameroon's got a +8. Doesn't really matter. It's I'm just looking at ahead to the schedule for September. Cape Verde plays Mauritius, Cameroon plays Eswatini. I'm going to assume both of those take 3 points. And then Cape Verde is hosting Cameroon. And if they can beat Cameroon, that'll give them a 4-point lead with 2 matches to play. And Cape Verde finishing at home against Eswatini, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. That match against Cameroon is for a place at the World Cup. Pretty
much, yeah.
So, I might have to look into tickets to Praia for early to mid-September.
It is an impressive turnaround too, because
it is.
They did not come into this window. Cape Verde did not come into this window in form at all.
No,
like their
they
AFCON
didn't
qualifying
qualify
was
for
atrocious.
AFCON.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I mean, they did not have a good campaign, and so that's why, as I say, they were not coming in good form, and they did away with that.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised. I give them slightly the edge. I've got them about 55%, Cameroon about 44%. So I mean, it's pretty much a toss up. Um, I do think Cameroon's got a better chance to qualify for the playoffs, though. And it's just a little bit of a nuance where if Cape Verde does finish in second, they're probably falling down and aren't winning because Cameroon needs to do something to pass them. Whereas if Cape Verde and Cameroon both keep winning, Cameroon can still finish second and have a higher point total. So a little bit of a nuance there, but I've got Cameroon. I think Cameroon's positioned still pretty well to at least go to the next round. Like,
yeah,
if they don't win the group, they're probably one of those 4 playoff teams.
yeah,
But yeah, for me, it's a 2-team race at this point.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Any other notes on Group D?
Nope.
So Group E is the Morocco, Niger, Tanzania, Zambia group. We kind of talked about that already. Morocco's dominating. They've won all 5 of their matches, plus 12 goal differential. I mean, it's just a matter of time before they qualify.
Yeah.
I think that, again, they're going to be really tough at the World Cup. To me, they seem like a team that's at the top, right there in the top 2, probably in Africa. And I think you've got to say they're probably number 1 at this point.
Yeah.
They haven't really been challenged in this group at all, frankly. And, not that I was necessarily expecting them to be challenged by this group, but it's gone how I expected. But Niger was tricky. Niger was definitely tricky, and they needed a goal in stoppage time to actually get the win against Niger, which was played on the road in Morocco. So, I mean, that's another nuance is like, you look at Morocco's schedule, they went to Tanzania, they hosted Zambia, they played Congo in Morocco, they played Niger in Morocco, they played Tanzania in Morocco. Next window, they're hosting Niger in Morocco. Like, I mean, I don't know the qualification could have been made any easier for them, but they're still deserving.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. And I think I happened to be cleaning the bathroom, my bathroom, while I was watching the Morocco-Niger match, and that goal went in, and I just was like, oh, man, of course. So, yeah, it was expected, I guess, but Morocco looks good. Looks good. So
they do. Tanzania didn't really show me much. And I don't know. Depending on what happens with these calculations, they still could advance, so could Niger, but it's going to be a wait and see with them at this point.
Yeah.
All right. Let's head to Group F, which is a bit more exciting. So, lots of goals in this group. Mm-hmm. Ivory Coast was not one of those teams that scored a lot of goals. They nabbed 2 1-0 wins over Burundi and Gambia, but Gabon picked up 2 wins, a 3-0 win over the Seychelles, and then Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang with a brace against Kenya. And Gabon is on 15 points in second place, right behind the Ivory Coast. So, I mean, you're seeing big point totals in Group F, which immediately means that one of these teams is probably pretty likely to go to the playoffs as well as one of those top 4 qualifiers. So, Burundi's on 10. They've been tough, but Kenya's on 6. Gambia's on 4. Very disappointing for me. Seychelles is the whipping boy of this group on 0 points. Feels again like really a 2-team race. It's the Ivory Coast and Gabon at this point.
Yeah,
but
and Seychelles has been eliminated.
They have, and Gambia can only get into second place. They can't qualify directly.
Right.
So, the Ivory Coast has scored 14 goals and conceded 0 in qualifying. They've yet to concede a goal. They may not the entire qualifying, but um, I know you like the Ivory Coast. How are you feeling about Gabon? Because they're right there, and I mean they could easily leapfrog the Ivory Coast
Mhm.
if they're able to defeat them in September, and we could see them be the team to qualify directly.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about Gabon. I think they'll definitely be a playoff team.
Yeah.
I don't see them winning this group, but they're still definitely in the picture. But yeah, they'll be a good challenge. It would be really interesting to see them go through that playoff and end up reaching the World Cup. That would be, I mean, that's obviously what Aubameyang wants.
Oh yeah.
This is like his last hurrah. So
Yeah. I don't have any group with a higher chance to send their second place team to that final. 90%. And it's just really a function of both of these teams being so high on points. How are you feeling about the Ivory Coast though? Because I feel like they've flown a bit under the radar, which is kind of shocking. I mean, that could just be me saying that and not actually be the case, but they did win the last AFCON. They haven't conceded in qualifying. Do you view the Ivory Coast as like a top 3 team in Africa right now?
Oh, I don't know about top three. For top three in Africa, I'd probably go Morocco, Egypt, Algeria, maybe.
Okay.
Then Ivory Coast.
Okay.
It
And
would
then Senegal.
oh, yeah, and then Senegal. Yeah,
I think they're the top 5. I feel like they're the top 5, but
yeah, it could be any mix of that.
Yeah.
I would probably put Morocco top, but then everybody else. So they're definitely in the conversation for sure, and obviously defending AFCON title holders, they have to be. But they I don't know, their match against the Gambia was interesting. Like they weren't quite as dominant as maybe I was expecting, I guess.
Yeah.
The Gambia definitely had some chances and maybe should have done a little bit better with their chances. The Gambia outshot them 8-5, but they just couldn't make anything like stick.
Yeah, I mean, just for reference, here are the Ivory Coast's last 3 matches in World Cup qualifying. 0-0 draw against Kenya. 1-0 win over Burundi at a neutral site. 1-0 win over Gambia at home.
Yeah.
It's not super convincing. So I'm keeping an eye on Gabon because I don't think it's likely that they're able to pass the Ivory Coast, but might need to make a 2-stop trip between Cape Verde and Gabon in September because Gabon is hosting Ivory Coast.
Yeah. September is going to be a big window across Africa. Like who's qualifying is going to become very clear, I think, in the September window. And that's another huge game. Yeah.
I think Gabon can do it. I know they'll need to win at home, and I know it's going to be difficult, but the opportunity is definitely there for them.
So we could have a playoff scenario with Burkina Faso, Senegal, Ivory Coast, and like Cameroon.
You could.
Wow.
You really could.
And
then with the winner getting to play New Caledonia.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. That's great because I think New Caledonia is more likely to get one of the CONCACAF teams in their first match, probably.
Okay.
Because they'll be in the play-in to get to the actual like round, right? So there's like a play-in to get to the play-in. So my guess is that it'll be the 2 lowest ranked teams that are in that, and it's probably going to be a CONCACAF nation and New Caledonia. And then whoever wins that could get drawn against this African team.
You make a good point in that. Something else to consider is that of those 4 teams that even get to the second round, 3 of them are going to get eliminated no matter what.
Yeah.
And so if you have Cameroon and you have the Ivory Coast and both in there, mathematically one is getting eliminated. They both cannot make the World Cup. So that second place playoff is going to be crazy.
Yeah, really crazy. I can't wait.
So, I know. For our listeners, if you have listened to other shows, coming into the March window, CAF is one that Joe and I were both the most excited about, and it delivered. And I'm still just looking forward to more CAF World Cup qualifying.
Yes.
So
I was also very impressed with Burundi putting 5 past the Seychelles. I mean, I know it's the Seychelles, but
yeah,
I think I sent you a message the last time that Burundi scored 5 goals was a long time ago. Did you say it was like 2008, I think, or something?
it's been quite some time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So that was kind of exciting to see.
Yes. All right, let's head to Group G. So Group G, Algeria's putting a little bit of distance between themselves and second place Mozambique. Algeria's on 15 points, Mozambique's on 12, Botswana on 9, Uganda on 9, Guinea, I know for you, a disappointing 7, and then Somalia is on 1 point. They cannot qualify directly, and they can only finish second place. But for a team that is on 1 point, let's talk about Somalia, and particularly their 1-0 draw. Their 0-0 draw against Guinea in the first match of this window, because their keeper is actually our keeper of the window.
Yeah. What a performance. I mean,
it was an absolute shooting gallery from Guinea.
It was.
And the keeper for Somalia there's no other way to describe it other than a heroic performance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, what did you say? It was like 30 shots or something. Is that right? Something like that?
It was, yes.
Yeah. It was unbelievable, but yeah.
I think it was even more. 15 saves.
15. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. That was a fun one to watch. Just because, you were kind of rooting for Somalia to get a point, because of how well the goalkeeper had performed. Mohamed Jama just absolutely deserved. Good for him. He actually played pretty well against Botswana too. So it was just fun.
Yeah.
It was just fun. But yeah, Somalia on the flip side is pretty much out of it.
They are.
Yeah. Not officially, but pretty much.
I mean, Guinea losing points against Somalia, they're pretty much out of it at this point too. And for a team that we both liked coming into the qualifying, I would be surprised if they finish higher than maybe 4th in this group.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's going to be Algeria first and Mozambique second to me. Algeria got a big win over Mozambique, 5-1, and to take hold of first place in the group, that was a massive result for them. Mozambique, I think is still a tough team. They got to win against Uganda. They're going to be in that mix for the second place qualifiers. I think, probably a little bit less than 50-50, but they've got a pretty decent point total too. So Mozambique is definitely in that mix as well.
Yeah. For Guinea, just disaster, like absolute disaster. You've got one of the best strikers in Europe in Guirassy, and you have what on paper looks like an incredible squad. Players playing in La Liga, players playing in Ligue 1, and it's...
And you come out of a window playing Somalia and Uganda with one point.
With 1 point. Yeah, that's like a real slap. So I don't know what's going on with Guinea. They are just really on the struggle bus, and I can't see them pulling themselves out of it now. For me, Algeria looks really strong. Like they figured out They figured out how to unlock Amora, and he looks amazing. 5 goals in this window and an assist. I mean, he was lights out. So he made our team of the window, well deserved. And
he scored for them in November and October also. So
yes,
he's now scored 7 goals for Algeria since October.
One of the most dangerous attackers in Africa, playing for an African nation, I guess I should say, since he plays for Wolfsburg in Germany. But yeah, what a player, just absolutely electric. And they, the gap between Algeria and Mozambique is only 3 points, but let's be honest, Algeria absolutely slapped Mozambique in their second match.
They did.
I mean, it was
Algeria's the better team. Like,
yeah,
that's not really a question at this point.
Right.
And I think it's just a matter of time for Algeria. Like, something really bad would have to happen. They still play Somalia. They have Uganda at home. They have Botswana at home. Yeah. I mean, they only have a 3-point lead, but I give them a 98.5% chance to win the group. So
yeah.
I mean, it's the second highest after Morocco.
Yeah.
Which is remarkable with a 3-point lead. It just goes to show you, like, that's the quality of this Algeria team.
Yeah. Do you think that Mozambique has a chance to get into the playoff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I thought they played well against Uganda.
Yeah, I've got them with a 35% chance to get into the playoffs.
Okay.
So a little bit less than 50-50. It's going to depend on what some of the others do. And, they currently have a -1 goal differential, but I think they're ultimately going to be on the outside looking in. I think they might be like 5th or 6th in that second place table. But they definitely are still in play, but they really need to win some more games.
Yeah. Pepo looks good for Mozambique. So that was promising.
Yeah.
I thought he had a good window.
Jenny Katamo scored as well.
Yep.
So it was a pretty useless goal, but congratulations to him for getting one past in Algeria. So
yeah.
But yeah, I'm not seeing much from any of the other teams. I don't really think Botswana or Uganda have really a chance to get into second, or even if they do enough to be able to get into the playoff.
Yeah. So, I would tend to agree. It is interesting to me that both Botswana and Uganda are only 3 points back from Mozambique, though.
Yeah.
That's
yeah, I mean, they definitely could do enough to move up into second place. I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah, but it just wouldn't be enough to get to playoff. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. They're kind of like where Nigeria's at.
Yeah.
It feels like.
Yeah.
Where, like, they could get there, but, is it going to be enough? Probably not.
Right. And I think we're looking at a similar situation potentially in Group H as well. Like,
I would agree as well. Namibia just keeps looking tough, though. I mean,
yeah,
they're hanging around, and I mean, they got a 1-0 win over Malawi. They drew Equatorial Guinea 1-1. They just keep putting up points, and they still have 0 losses on their ledger through 6 matches. I mean, forget about the one they got, awarded, but they have 0 losses. And I think it's just one of those things for them where you look at Tunisia, who also has not conceded in qualifying. They're just piling 1-0 wins on top of each other and surprised us. I don't think they meant to do this, but they scored a second goal against Malawi. And, it was a penalty. I think, they finally broke through and got their first goal in the 86th minute. I know they didn't mean to score a second time, and, the referee awarded them a penalty. So, of course the guy had to score, but, typical Tunisia, low scoring, but I mean, Tunisia is going to win this group. It's pretty certain at this point. I don't know. I mean, Namibia, they're still hanging around, and I mean, they're on 12 points. They've got a few draws. They still, I think they still have to play Tunisia. They do. They're at Tunisia in the final match day, but if Tunisia has already locked up a spot, maybe, they don't go with their top squad there. Funnily enough, guess who in this group has scored the most goals? Individual player.
Insui.
It is. It is with
He
3.
was back. He was back. He was back. It was good to see him back.
And that's including the 2 goals when he was ineligible. But he came back. It was like he never left.
Yeah.
Scored against Sao Tome. Iban Edu scored against Sao Tome. The boys were back together. It was a good thing to see. I really think Equatorial Guinea, if they didn't get that suspension, I think they could have made the playoffs. I think they're a good enough team to be in that mix. I don't think this group is that strong. But, it is what it is at this point. I think Namibia could get there. Liberia is right there, too. They're on 10 points, and I would not count them out yet either.
Yeah, I thought Liberia had a decent window. Equatorial Guinea as well. And I don't know, for me, the draw for Namibia against Equatorial Guinea was a bit disappointing. Like, Namibia scored to go up, and then they just let it go real quick. So there's a mentality thing there, I think. It was like within 5 minutes, I believe.
Yeah.
Or it was close to that. So, yeah, interesting group. I think I have to be honest. I was a little impressed with Tunisia as well. I think, they got a tough win over Liberia, and that's why I was impressed with Liberia, because that's the best I've seen Liberia play for a really long time.
Yeah.
It was only 1-0, and yes, it's Tunisia, and Tunisia doesn't score a lot of goals, and they score and then they hang on. That's the very Tunisian way of playing. But Liberia was in that game. They were definitely in that game, and they had opportunities to score. It wasn't lopsided like maybe people would think. So
yeah,
it's just interesting. But it's a straightforward group, in my opinion. Like Tunisia,
I agree.
Done, and we'll see if Namibia can get into second place.
Yeah, and not to take anything away from Tunisia, I think they're a pretty good team, and they're tough to break down, and that is their style of play.
Oh yeah.
But they're tough to play against. I would like to see them against some challenging opposition, and I would like to see them against some European opposition. And just to see how that goes. And they're a team where you typically only get to see it once every 4 years, but I would like to see them. And I'd be interested you just don't have really in this group any of those big African goal scorers. And I would like to see that. Even I know Guinea's not in this group, but I would have liked to see a Garassi against them. I would like to see Gabon against Tunisia. See what some of these goal scorers can do. Even like Cameroon, I think would be interesting as well. So we'll see over time, but I think it's Tunisia's, and I don't really think anybody else is gonna make it that difficult for them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we'll get to see them face European opposition anytime soon, because I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, they're playing Morocco twice in June.
Yeah, it's not going to be till next year.
Yeah. Okay, to Group I, the last group. So we've got, this group is crazy, but it became a little more straightforward in this window, didn't it? Ghana on 15, Comoros on 12, Madagascar on 10, Mali on 9, Central African Republic on 5, and Chad with a big fat 0. So good window for Ghana. They're definitely one of the African teams that had, well, to be honest, one of the national teams in general that had a good window. 2 wins.
Yes.
They did what they needed to do to get back on track, and now they have a 3-point lead over Comoros. And I don't know, do you see them letting that go?
Not really at this point. And even coming into the window, I was shocked when we were talking about Group I. Like, I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I actually like Ghana. And I liked Ghana coming into the window. I like them even more now. Comoros, the opportunity was there for them, and they just
They blew it
got
against Mali.
blasted against Mali.
Yeah, that was
And
a disaster.
yeah, it was. And then Mali had an equal disaster against the Central African Republic. So
Yes, they did.
Ghana's picking up 3 points against Chad. They're picking up 3 points against Madagascar. They really dominated both teams, 8-0 combined.
Yep.
Other teams getting draws behind them just elevates them even more. So I was excited about Mali coming into qualifying. I still think they can sneak into second, but for me, the arrow is really pointing down for Mali and up for Ghana.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I thought Thomas Partey, Jordan Ayew, and Mohamed Salisu looked really good for Ghana in this window, better than I've seen them look for quite some time. So that seems promising, and I'm absolutely gutted for Comoros. I was really hoping that we would get to see something, and it's not the door hasn't shut completely. But it is looking pretty tough. Like, even they just didn't play that well this window. Like, they were really stale against Mali and even against Chad, and they were stale again. And that's not the Comoros side that we'd gotten accustomed to seeing.
Yep.
So even though my guy Rafiki Saeed scored against Chad, he struggled against Mali, and it's just frustrating. Like, especially seeing that Mali result in their second match.
Yeah.
And for me, for Comoros, it's just a real bummer. So,
yeah.
Anyways, I don't know if the ship has sailed. Like, they're sitting on 12 points, and so there's still an opportunity, I think, for them to potentially get into the playoff, but they have to. It's going to be tough. They've got really tough games ahead. Like, they're done with Chad now. They've got everybody else left in the group. So they've got Ghana, Madagascar, Mali, correct.
And they still have to go to Mali and Ghana, both. Yeah. They have 3 road matches. The CAR match will be in neutral ground, but they still have to go to Mali and they still have to go to Ghana.
Yeah.
And that is not a good situation for them.
No, it's not. So, oh well. I don't want to give up, but it was a key game, and they didn't show up for it, and so it kind of kicked them in the butt.
And even just thinking about they did lose to Mali, but just thinking even if they had won that match, I know they'd be level on points with Ghana. I think I'd still be pretty heavily favoring Ghana, just knowing what's on the backstretch of their schedule.
Yeah.
And if Ghana doesn't slip up, I don't see it happening for Comoros. I think something really remarkable would have to happen now for Ghana to not make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is crazy. Another team that didn't even qualify for AFCON and we're basically saying is pretty much a lock or close to it to qualify for the World Cup. So
yeah,
they're in a good spot.
They are. Yeah.
All right. Anything else on Africa? It's been a fun window, and CAF qualifying has been awesome.
It has been awesome. No, I don't. I think we covered it pretty well. So, looking forward to it picking back up in September. There's some good fixtures already scheduled, friendly-wise, and for some of the African nations. Like Senegal's going to play England. That'll be a good one.
Yep.
And then they also play Ireland after that, I believe. So that'll be fun. Couple of UK nations. So pretty cool.
Absolutely. All right. So that is going to do it for the first half of our March review show. As you can expect, or as you probably did expect, just over 2 hours to get through about half of it. So a lot going on. We've still got UEFA to get through, as well as CONMEBOL and AFC. And we're going to have a second part to our March review show. It's only fair, considering there's not another window till June, that we give you a little more content this month. So we wanted to make sure we got through everything, and thank you for listening. We will be back with our second part 2 March review show very soon. Also, just want to give a quick shout out to our socials, and make sure you follow us on X at Window INTL Pod, on Instagram at the same Window INTL Pod. We're on YouTube. You can find me, Brandon, at we_global on Twitter, and you can find Joe at 12th Yank. And we are posting content, rosters, graphics, odds, pretty much everything you'd want to know about international football across all our socials. So please give us a follow, subscribe, very much appreciated.
Yeah, and our board too, for who's qualified. We got the board up.
The board, yes, the big board.
Yeah.
And soon we're going to have to figure out how to integrate this, but there are going to be numbers, World Cup qualifying odds for every single team that is still alive. So they're going to be boards odds a lot more, but the Window International Pod big board is now up to 7 teams out of the 48 that have qualified for the World Cup 2026. We're going to see a few more in June, and then we're just going to start adding teams to that board pretty quickly. So very much looking forward to what's to come on the international stage.
Yep.
All right. Thanks again to our listeners, and we will see you for part 2.